with jamboree. Oh, you pigtail sailor hanging down behind with jamboree.
For more years than old men can remember, Liverpool has made its own music. Songs that made a mock of misery and labor. Sound never dies and the echoes still ripple over the river.
Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Way
Music raucous or rhythmic, noisy or nostalgic. Songs of the Mersey, wafted and whistled from Sydney Heads to the Golden Gate.
Way haul away, we'll haul away the bowling. Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. When I was a little boy, my mother always told me, way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. That if I didn't kiss the girls, my lips would all go mouldy. Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Way haul away, we'll haul away the bowling. Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Once I had a Cockney girl and she was fat and lazy. Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. I swapped her for a Scouser girl who nearly drove me crazy. Way haul away, we'll haul away, Joe. Way haul away, we'll haul away the
Ballads of lust and gusto, the music of men for whom the world held no new wonder.
Oh, Maggie, Maggie May, they have taken her away, and she'll never walk down it anymore. Oh, she robbed so many sailors and captains of the whalers, that dirty Robbie no good Maggie May. Oh, well, I do remember when I first met Maggie May, she was cruising up and down Old Canning Place. She'd a figure so divine, like a frigate of the line. Me being a sailor, I give chase.
Not the music of the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Society, which had flourished through the century in which the songs were sung.
As I was a-rolling down Park Lane, wearing of me shoes, I stepped into the shipping office to hear what was the news. The shipping master said to me, get on your blue DBs, let's have none of your line just touches in the champion of the seas, in the champion of the seas, in the champion of the seas, let's have none of your line just touches in.
No longer the ferry at Tranmere, only the long, low-laden tankers.
From on a strait, and they called her Sweet Mary, of Tranmere Ferry.
So the old century slipped away, leaving the homes of the men who built the great shipping empires. Came the blight of 2 world wars, and all the reconstruction and rehabilitation that followed.
Johnny Todd, he took an ocean for
New houses in new suburbs.
ocean wide, and he left
New people in new communities.
love behind him, weeping on the Liverpool side. For a week she wept full sorely, tore her hair and wrung her hands, till she met
All new towns to the world of Johnny Todd.
the sailor walking on the Liverpool sands.
There followed the post-war dance craze until 1957, when in the cellar of an old warehouse in Matthew Street, built about the year 1850, there opened a new jazz club. It was called the Cavern. Traditional jazz was no longer the big draw. Skiffle had won the fight for a hearing. But these were national trends, too conventional for Liverpool youth. Something new was wanted, and out of the Cavern there emerged a new sound. A few chords strung together on a cheap guitar, a drum for a beat, another guitar, more chords, a bass to give balance. The Mersey Beat came firm from the mold. By 1960, beat groups were billed as big attractions, and the young generation would listen to little else. New jazz clubs opened overnight. And as the new jazz clubs opened overnight, so the new beat groups came into being. Every facility for the formation of these groups was ready to hand. The Liverpool Boys Association had been the first organization in the world to coordinate the work of boys' clubs. 10,000 boys were affiliated through 100 different clubs. There was hardly a boys' club in the city which could not boast at least one group. Typical of these is the Florence Institute, where Jerry and the Pacemakers and the Foremost first saw the shape of a guitar. Boys who, when they weren't bothered with the business of basic chords, had minds only for football and the other boundless interests of youth. Little thought in their minds for damage to hands which would later earn fortunes as they strummed their way across the world. The Mersey Beat was born of no particular social strata. It was as vibrant in the suburbs as it ever was in the congested areas of the city. It was no more than the expression of all the exuberance of youth. The invasion of the continental jazz clubs by Liverpool groups occurred in 1960. One of these groups engaged to appear at the Star Club in Hamburg at that time was the Beatles. They early affected a long hairstyle, little knowing the repercussions it would bring in the trend of teenage fashion throughout the world. Their first record had been cut in Germany in 1961. They assumed an easy familiarity that appealed to press and public alike. Then in 1962, they exploded into popularity with people from every strata of society and every walk of life. Meantime, in 1957, 4 Liverpool men had formed themselves into a folk group singing old songs and new. They called themselves the Spinners.
Come back when you're 21, son. Well, I joined me dad and my granddad too, working at Gladstone Gate number 2. The overtime's gear and I've got a good pen and I get along fine with the rest of the men. There's a gay lot of fellas down there. From Garston to Gladstone, 10-mile docks with keys and cranes and gates and locks. 10,000 men work side by side, Jones and O'Reilly, Hughes and McBride. Catholics, Protestants, they're all working together. There's a meeting when a boss gets tough, when a car goes dirty, when a bloke hits rough, when a parson speaks, we'll come in force. We all like to argue, then dear cause.
Amongst groups to gather an early following were the Searchers, but the rhythm was slow to reverberate beyond the Mersey. The various media of mass communication saw limited possibilities in the exploitation of the sound. Record companies, radio and television were at first diffident about handling something which at best could be no more than a fleeting phase of adolescent fancy. How wrong were the prophets. The Mersey Beat was throbbing its progress through the world of entertainment. Television, record companies and radio were avidly contracting with groups for recordings in an attempt to meet the insatiable demand from people of all ages which had mushroomed out of an adolescent fancy. Liverpool became a near Mecca to which teenagers from all over Britain and the continent travelled in order that they might visit the Cavern and the other clubs in which the Mersey Beat had been formed and first given a hearing. not all beat music was wholly irrelevant. There were songs of a life that they knew in a world as they found it.
I'm telling you, little children, you better tell what you see. And if you're good, I'll give you candy and a quarter if you quiet like you ought to be. And keep the secret with me.
The groups emerged vibrant from a city which was giving free expression to its faith and hope in greater ways. Gone are the sailors' doss houses, gone all the haunts of 100 years ago. All swept away in a city and port, shaping themselves for the challenge of the future.
On Australia's strand we soon will land. Bully foes, he can look for me. I'll jump a ship in Melbourne town, go digging of the gold. There's a fortune found beneath the ground where the eucalyptus grows.
Think you've lost your love? Well, I saw her yesterday. She's thinking of, and she told me what to say.
Just Liverpool boys who fashioned something new in a sea of sound and insisted that the world listen. And the world listened. Cakes and calendars, diaries and dolls, the name Beatles has been branded onto almost every conceivable product. They've given rise to new patterns in teenage behavior. And through them, adolescents have found some outlet for the inhibitions and repressions of youth. For the first time in the history of popular entertainment, youth has produced its own idols out of the next street. Idols as tangible as the knockers on their own front doors.
You know you should be glad. You know it's up to you. I think it's only fair. I can hurt you too. Apologize to her because she loves you, and you know that can't be bad. She loves you, and you know you should be glad. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. She loves you, yeah, yeah, yeah. With a love like that, you know you should.
Maybe only a passing phase, only an adolescent fancy, but already much older in fact than it is in the mind. And if the fancy passes and the phase goes, the effect will long be remembered.
Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe. Way haul away, we'll keep the packet rolling. Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe.
Geordie Johnson had a pig and it was double jointed.
Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe.
He took it to the blacksmith shop to have its trotters pointed.
Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe. Way haul away, we'll haul away the bowling. Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe.
King Louis was the king of France before the revolution.
Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe.
Well, the people had his big head off, it spoiled his constitution.
Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe. Way haul away, we'll haul away the bowling. Way haul away, we'll haul away Joe.